What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. It is week 21 of fantasy hockey, and today we're going to be talking about the usual stuff, the teams with the best and worst schedules, the streamers to help you maximize your games, and some new must-add players. But we also have to talk about the trade deadline as well. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. All right, before we get into the schedule for this week, hit that subscribe button below. Only like 60% of my viewers are subscribed. It really helps out the channel, guys. I would appreciate it. And also, join the Discord, guys. We talk in there about fantasy hockey. We give out advice, trying to grow the Discord. The link is in the description below. And also, guys, you can follow me at FIREDUP Fantasy on X. I post a lot there, a lot of up-to-date information about power play lines, deployment changes, and, you know, some funny stuff as well. So make sure you follow me at FIREDUP Fantasy. All right, guys, let's talk about the schedule for this week. Let's look at the teams with the most off nights. Starting off, let's look at the schedule here. It's pretty typical. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday are considered off nights. Sunday, it's a little bit heavier for an off night than normal, but still, you should have open roster spots. And then Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday are heavy nights. Now, we have two teams that have 4 games and 4 off nights this week. Fantastic for streaming. These two teams being the Utah Hockey Club and the Detroit Red Wings. Amazing options if you want to maximize your games. We also have 3 teams that have 4 games and 3 off nights. Very good as well. Those 3 teams being the Avalanche, the Oilers, and the Ducks. We also have the Kraken, who have 3 games and 3 off nights. Very good. And we also have the Canucks that have 4 games and 2 off nights, which is solid. Now, in terms of the teams with the least amount of games, we have 2 teams that only play twice this week. Not going to be ideal. Those 2 teams being the Calgary Flames and the Dallas Stars. The Stars also have a pretty tough schedule, playing Winnipeg and Colorado. So, yeah, not the best. Hopefully, you don't have too many players on these teams for this week. Now let's talk about the teams with the easiest schedule for skaters this week. And these teams include the Vegas Golden Knights, the Devils, the Blues, the Blackhawks, the Predators, and the Capitals. They all have a pretty high opponent goals against average, so there is a chance that the players on these teams overperform. On the flip side, the hardest schedule for skaters are going to come from these teams. These teams being the Stars, the Bruins, the Flyers, the Islanders, the Penguins, the Blue Jackets, the Leafs, and the Kraken. Now, in terms of the easiest schedule for goalies, these goalies will be coming from the Predators, the Capitals, the Blues, the Canucks, the Utah Hockey Club, the Avalanche, and the Panthers. On the flip side, the hardest schedule for goalies comes from the Stars, the Bruins, the Rangers, the Flyers, the Sabres, and the Jets. Now, in terms of the streamers that you might want to pick up to maximize your games for this week, it really depends on your league settings, of course. Like, for example, McBain on Utah is a guy that puts up really good hits, but if your league doesn't count hits, he's not really a viable option. So that is always something to consider, but we have the usual suspects on Utah, Keller and Gunther. Keller's probably not available, but Gunther could be available in a more shallow league. And then you have players like Nick Schmaltz and Barrett Hayden, who are pretty low rostered, and those guys are in the top 6 non-power play ones. So those are sneaky options for this week, getting those 4 games, getting those 4 off nights. Obviously, you have Sergachev, doubt he's available in most leagues. And then you have some other players like Logan Cooley, who isn't on power play 1 right now, which is disappointing, but he is line 1 with Clayton Keller. And then a player like Michael Kesterling, who puts up solid peripherals. Now, with the Red Wings, not the best options in terms of streaming. They're pretty top-heavy. You have guys like Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat, Kane. Depends on the size of your league in terms of which players could be available. Sider, obviously, probably not available. But you do have some other guys like Casper, who is currently, in the top 6, getting good minutes. You have Tarasenko, Simon Evanson, who puts up good peripherals, and Soderblom, who's currently line 1 as well. Now, in terms of the streamers on teams with 4 games and 3 off nights, you have the Avalanche, the Ducks, and the Oilers. With the Avalanche, obviously they're pretty top-heavy too, but Nate just could be available in a very shallow league. I doubt he is. But you do have Nichushkin here, who is pretty low rostered on a platform like Yahoo. Maybe it's dead leagues. Maybe it's people that, don't really pay attention, but Nichushkin is on power play 1 in the top 6. He's a beast. Definitely a viable streaming option and a long-term hold. You have Lehkonen, who isn't power play 1 right now, but he is line 1. Drouin, top 6, power play 1. You have Brock Nelson, who's in the top 6, just got traded, could see a little bump. We typically see a bump for players when they get traded. And then some other players like Devin Taves, Ross Colton, Charlie Coyle, etc. With the Ducks, there's always fantastic options because they are not very top-heavy. A lot of low roster percentage guys here. Frank Vetrano puts up elite peripherals. Troy Terry, low rostered, decent. Jackson Lacombe playing like a beast. Mason McTavish playing very good. Leo Carlson, Cutter Gauthier, Ryan Strome, peripheral guys like Gudas, Trouba. Killorn, etc. Now with the Oilers, there's probably not a lot of options. Zach Hyman may have been dropped, so maybe you want to take a look at him. Nugent Hopkins is still power play 1. And then you have some other players like Darnell Nurse, Jake Wallman, Pod Colson, etc. We also have streamers from the Kraken who have 3 games and 3 off nights. Lots of options as well. Jared McCann, Vince Dunn, Brandon Montour, Jaden Schwartz, Eli Tolvin, and Matty Beniers, Capo Caco, Chandler Stevenson, Shane Wright, Adam Larson. And you don't have to pick these players up to start the week. You could wait until Wednesday and get those 3 off nights. So very solid for streaming as well. And then finally, we have some 4 games, 2 off night streamers. Certainly not as good as some of the other streamers that I talked about in terms of maximizing your games, but still, it is solid. On the Canucks, we have Elias Pettersson. Maybe he's starting to pick things up. He scored a goal last night on Friday. We have Jake DeBrusk, who's getting good ice time, solid peripherals. Brock Besser, Philip Peronic, who's power play 1 with Quinn Hughes still being out. Connor Garland, who's power play 1 right now. And then some other guys like Philip Hedl, who's solid, Sherwood, who puts up elite peripherals, and maybe Suter. All right, now let's talk about some power play updates. Lots of moving pieces with the trade deadline. Starting off with the Boston Bruins, Mason Lohrei is still power play 1. But we also have Brad Marchand being injured and then subsequently traded, and this has changed things up. The current power play 1 right now is Lohrei, Zaka, Geeky, Pasternak, and Casey Middlestat, who just got acquired by the Boston Bruins. That means Elias Lindholm is on power play 2. Very disappointing season for him, but that is what the power play 1 is looking like right now. With the Buffalo Sabres, we saw the Cousins and Josh Norris swap, and we saw immediately in the first game Josh Norris on power play 1, bumping Jack Quinn down to power play 2. Jason Zucker is still injured, so that means Tuck is still PP1 as well. With the Carolina Hurricanes, Rantanen is no longer on the team, and Stankoven was acquired. So what we have seen right here in the first game is Stankoven immediately sent up to line 1 power play 1. Definitely a solid add. And the power play 1 right now is looking like Aho, Svetch, Jarvis, Stankoven, and Shane Gostisbehere. With the Colorado Avalanche, I've been watching the games, and it looks like they've been going back and forth in terms of which player is on the top unit. Those 2 players being Nichushkin and Lehkonen. So we will see what happens long term. I expect it to be Nichushkin, but currently they are alternating this at the moment. With the Dallas Stars, I was very curious what was going to happen here. We saw last night the exact same power play, but it was Rantanen on power play 1 and Duchesne on power play 2. Now, Hintz took a puck to the face, specifically the eye region. He didn't return to the game. He had to go to the hospital. We did just get an update as I'm recording this that they don't think it is going to be long-term. They still need to do some imaging to determine if there is a fracture, but sounds like there's good news. If Hintz is healthy, it looks like he's going to be on that top unit, but if it's not, then it's going to be Duchesne. With the Florida Panthers, Ekblad is still power play 1, meaning Seth Jones is still power play 2. Semiskevich is still power play 1, Verhaeghe is power play 2, and Sam Bennett is still power play 1 with Makachuk injured. With the Los Angeles Kings, they acquired Andrei Kuzmenko, and he immediately was put on line 1 power play 1, meaning that Kuzmenko right now is power play 1, LaFerriere is power play 2. With the Devils, obviously Jack Hughes, season-ending injury. We have seen them mix up their units, and what it's looking like right now is Bratt, Hischier, Meyer, Mercer, and then Luke Hughes. So good news for Meyer and Mercer. Obviously great news for Luke Hughes. And then Nason has been bumped down to power play 2, so not so good news for him. And then with the Islanders, they have given power play 1 back to Dobson. Good news for him. And currently what they had last game was Dobson, Horvat, Duclair, Palmieri, and Holmstrom on that top unit. With the Rangers, Kreider is back. Today he played, he's healthy, and he was immediately put on power play 1. So that means Trocheck is power play 2, Kreider is power play 1, and they still have defenseman Zach Jones on that top unit. With the Ottawa Senators, they acquired Dylan Cousins, but he wasn't power play 1 in their first game. No, it was Claude Giroux, so something to keep an eye out for, but that's what it is right now. With the San Jose Sharks, Jake Wallman has been traded to the Oilers. He actually had a pretty good game. I was surprised to see the minutes, but I guess it makes sense with that Combe being out. We'll see what happens when everyone's healthy, but he looked good out there. But regardless of that, with Wallman being traded, the Sharks are going back to a 5-forward power play. So pretty much Wallman out, Wenberg in. A couple more updates here with the St. Louis Blues. They are finally going back to a dedicated first unit. We'll see if it lasts, but this dedicated first unit is Robert Thomas, Jordan Kyrou, Pavel Buchnevich, Dylan Holloway, and Cam Fowler. With the Tampa Bay Lightning, this is very interesting, guys, and this is something that I speculated as potentially being a thing that happens. Bjorkstrand was power play 1 last game. That's very interesting because they've been looking for a righty on that left side. I'm not sure if he was on that left side. I'm assuming he was, but could be potentially very good news for him in fantasy. He was line 1, power play 1 last game. So, yeah, very interesting. This means Hagel was power play 2. And also Hedman is out day-to-day, which means Darren Radish is on that top unit right now. 2 more updates here with the Utah Hockey Club. Barrett Hayden is still power play 1 over Logan Cooley. He's been playing good, so I don't expect them to take him off. If he starts to struggle a bit, they'll put Cooley on there. We will see. And then with the Vancouver Canucks, they've gone back to a dedicated first unit of Philip Hronek because Quinn Hughes is injured, Elias Pettersson, Jake DeBrusk, Brock Besser, and Connor Garland. Moving on, let's talk about some new forward adds. These are players that have gained some value as of late. Some of them are under rostered. I think you should take a look. So let's start it off with Elias Pettersson of the Vancouver Canucks. Now, I don't want to be betting on Elias Pettersson considering the season that he's had, but he looked pretty good in the last game. He scored on the power play, a one-timer, and maybe he could bounce back. Maybe. Like, that is a possibility, guys. He was dropped in one of my leagues, and I picked him up just because I think the upside was there. If he was dropped in like a 10-team league or a deeper league than he probably should have been dropped in, I would take a look. Another player that you might want to take a look at is Timo Meier of the New Jersey Devils. I get it. It's been a disappointing season for Meier. But right now with Jack Hughes out, Meier is line 1, power play 1. He puts up elite peripherals. He had a really good March in last season. So maybe he could see the same type of success that he saw last year. Next, we have Valeri Nichushkin. Not power play 1 officially just yet, but I expect him to become a mainstay on there at some point. He's a beast, guys. Hopefully he can stay healthy. Expect him to be power play 1 in the top 6 for the rest of the year. We also have Matthew Nyes. I just think he's under rostered. Line 1, power play 1. Very good peripherals. We have Pierre-Luc Dubois, who is now in power play 1. Good peripherals. Looks great out there. Under rostered currently. We have Sam Bennett, who's line 2, power play 1 with Tkachuk injured. That's going to be how it's going to look for the rest of the season because Tkachuk has been ruled out in the regular season. We also have Adam Fantilli. I know Monahan might be returning in a couple of weeks, but Fantilli is a beast. Future superstar. Line 1, power play 1, good peripherals. It's a no-brainer. Very low roster percentage. Ryan Donato, obviously still a must-add player. I expect him to cool down soon, but playing great peripherals. We have Brian Rust. He's like 42% rostered. This could just be in leagues that people don't care about anymore. Like, a lot of these are dead leagues, or people might not trust his injury history, but I still think he's under rostered, so I have to include him. JJ Peterka, playing great lately. He's on line 2, which isn't great right now, but he is still power play 1, getting significant ice time, so I still think he's solid. Boone Jenner, amazing peripherals. That's pretty much the selling point for Jenner. Depends on your league settings, guys. Then we have Oliver Bjorkstrand, who's line 1, power play 1 currently. They've been mixing things up a little bit, so I don't know what's going to happen there, but definitely worth a speculative add, especially in a deeper league where it's hard to find value on the wire. We also have Josh Norris, who was line 1, power play 1 last game. That could be an interesting ad. Better deployment potentially on the Sabres versus the Senators. Then we have Logan Stankoven of the Carolina Hurricanes. He was line 1, power play 1 today. I mean, he didn't have the most minutes, but that's pretty good deployment. If that sticks, I expect him to have some pretty good weeks. And then we have William Eklund on here. I just think he's under rostered. Young player who's breaking out a bit. Great ice time, great deployment. A couple more forward ads here. We have Morgan Geekie of the Boston Bruins. He's currently line 1, power play 1. As long as his deployment sticks, he's definitely a guy that you want to take a look at. Depends on your league settings and your league size, of course. We also have Barrett Hayden, who's line 2, power play 1. As long as he's power play 1, he's going to be solid. He's producing. The peripherals are decent as well. We have Mackie Samoskevich as well of the Florida Panthers. He's line 2 right now on Sam Bennett's line. He's on power play 1 over Carter Verhaeghe. I laugh just because it's just a sad season for Verhaeghe. We'll see if this sticks, but I mean, as long as he's power play 1 in Florida, he will have value here. So definitely take a look at Samoskevich. 2 more players here. These are only players that are going to be viable in deeper leagues and leagues that don't heavily value peripherals because they both don't put up shots, hits, and blocks. But these players would be Andrei Kuzmenko of the Los Angeles Kings, who's line 1, power play 1 in his first game as a King. So if that sticks, he'll be solid. He'll put up points. And then Casey Middlestad as well, immediately put in the top 6 and on power play 1 over Elias Lindholm. So he could have some value as well. All right, next up, let's talk about some defenseman ads. Starting off with Thomas Harley. This is only going to be an option if you're in a very shallow league, but he should be rostered in pretty much any league at this point. We also have Noah Dobson, a Marshall League ad. He's back on Powerplay 1, so if he was dropped, I would take a look at him. We also have Luke Hughes, who is now Powerplay 1 with Dougie Hamilton out week to week. Definitely worth a look. He's going to play a lot of minutes, and he's going to potentially rack up a lot of power play points. Next, we have Noah Hannafin, who's Powerplay 1 with Shea Theodore out. We have Drew Doughty, who I just think is under-rostered with the amount of ice time that he's getting with his deployment. We have Jackson Lacombe, who is playing amazing, good peripherals, great ice time. We have Alex Vlasic, who's Powerplay 1 with Seth Jones gone. We have Mason Lowry, who's Powerplay 1 with McAvoy still injured. We have Philip Peronic, who's Powerplay 1 with Quinn Hughes out. We have Darren Radish, who's Powerplay 1 with Hedman injured, but this injury, I believe, is day-to-day, so only a short-term ad for Radish. We have Brady Shea, who's Powerplay 1 with Roman Josi injured. We have Shane Gostisbehere, who's back on Powerplay 1 on Carolina. We have Brock Faber, who's back on Powerplay 1 on Minnesota. And then we have Zach Jones, who is on Powerplay 1 on the Rangers, which is certainly a valuable thing to have in fantasy. And Fox is still out for potentially a few more weeks. So Zach Jones could be worth a look in deeper leagues. All right, finally, I just want to talk about two goalies, Karel Vejmelka, Connor Ingram, unfortunately entering the player assistance program. Vejmelka was already getting the majority of the starts. I hope Ingram gets well, but this is pretty much Vejmelka's net for the rest of the year, so he's going to get that volume on a team that is still trying to make it to the playoffs, so certainly worth a look. The other goalie here is Spencer Knight, now in the Chicago Blackhawks. Mrazek was traded to the Detroit Red Wings, and even though they're splitting right now with Knight and Soderblom, I still think Knight is the number one guy. I think he'll end up getting the most volume, so definitely take a look if you need a goalie. All right, guys, that's the end of the video. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I will catch you in the next one.